Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Buffs. My name is Mario Vitanzi. With me, as always, is Zach Seegers, Zach_Seegers at Vitanzi Therapy on Twitter. Zachary, you might have missed it. Oh, wait, no, you didn't, because you're a credentialed member for the CU Buffs. So, of course, you didn't miss it. This guy did it all on his own. That's unbelievable. But I digress. CU was looking a little rough in the first half, Zach, and I'm thinking, man, we're gonna have another Oregon game on our hands. It's looking a little bit brutal, and then the world was introduced to Amarian Miller. Oh my goodness, Zach! I know that you follow this a little bit more than I do, and you were around it a little bit more in the spring games and everything. Did you know who this kid was? And to what extent, and could you see this happening? Because you watch him in the second half, and you're like, we probably should have been throwing to him all game. Maybe they get that dub.
This one came out of nowhere for me. There are some Buffs players that I've had I called Montana Lemonius Craig going off in the spring game. I was saying this guy is probably the Buffs' best wide receiver every practice. As good as Travis Hunter is, as good as Jimmy Horn is, this guy is hanging with them and maybe even better than him. When it's a highlight play, more often than not, it's Montana Lemonius Craig. I bet right now he's wishing he didn't go to Arizona. But
it's a little brutal.
Amarian Miller, I knew of him as a recruit. Dion came here, poached him from Nebraska, Mario, which makes it all the more sweeter.
That's Nebraska the only good thing that Cameron and the Nebraska fans have going for them is that there's a dude that was coached from Nebraska or whatever who's doing really well right now.
Exactly. He almost went to the Huskers. That's about as close as they'll get to tasting great.
A really good recruit. They almost got. Hang the banner.
Yeah, just like the game 4 or 5 years ago. They almost had it. The 17-0 lead, 21-0 lead, whatever. Hang the banner. But yeah, Amarian Miller, I did not see this coming. He was not a spring practice standout. Dylan Edwards was. Carter Stoutmeyer was. Who's the other true freshman I'm spacing on that's been playing? Great. Or Cormani wasn't there. Those two, Dylan Edwards, I feel like I must be forgetting one. Anyways, those two guys were absolutely showing out. Amarian Miller was an afterthought. I just knew him as a great recruit. I cannot believe what we saw. I think this guy, I think he might have to supplant Jimmy Horn, which is a little uncomfortable and a little awkward, but how do you take that guy off the field? Like, I don't think he just got hot for a half, and there's more to talk about with this game, but why bury the lead? This guy's a legit player. As a true freshman, I know Deion Sanders is an old school coach, but you have got to start giving this guy snaps. It was wild how impressive he was.
Oh, it got to the point where Shedeur knew that he needed to make plays, and he was looking for Amarian specifically. Like, getting him the ball because he knew he was getting open and he knew that he would make a play. When you develop that kind of like instant chemistry with a quarterback that is the caliber of Shedeur Sanders, you're in for a pretty good time. And that's exactly what we saw. It's like Xavier Weaver, Jimmy Horn, Michael Harrison, like they all had solid games. They all had roles to play in that game, but nobody was anywhere near Amarian's level. And you could just tell down that stretch when CU was making their comeback and pushing to try and make that a ball game, it was Miller that they were looking at.
Oh, shoot. Sorry. Not only are
you
they
good? You're just
no, I'm fine. I was worried I was muted. Here's what you got to know. Joey and Bree have gotten in my head officially. They call me Zach, you're muted, Seegers, because I'll be on a tab looking stuff up and I start talking and I forget I'm muted. And so I froze that Zach, time because I was worried I was muted and I wasn't.
You don't
froze like Jeff Sims.
This show, our chemistry is much better than what you have with Joey and Bree. And that's not an indictment on the two of them, because you three are obviously amazing and you're one of my most favorite shows.
To you.
But I have unbelievable chemistry with everybody and you're fantastic at what you do. So you put that together and obviously it's going to far exceed anything else. Like any other show with whatever stupid, dumb run-on name that you could think of. It just doesn't compare to ours. That's all I'm saying.
I would agree, Mario. I would tend to agree with you.
I don't know. I don't know what you would call that show. But something CU related. It doesn't roll off the tongue like Let's Talk Buffs. Anyway, let's move on.
Just stir the pot.
Caleb Williams is a really, 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 really good quarterback. Now, obviously, we knew this was going to be we knew the defense was going to have a long day, Zach. I mean, no Travis Hunter and then no Shiloh Sanders. You go out and you try and slow down the best, not arguably, but the best offense in the entire country. The typical Lincoln Riley team that has a high power offense, not good defense, like a defense that doesn't live up to the billing, but has some pieces. It really seemed like Caleb Williams was playing on the pro level in Madden. The things that he was doing, especially in that first half, they were incredible, but you can really tell the special players when they make it look easy. He made a lot of difficult plays, and he made them easily. He was 30 of 40, 403 yards, 6 touchdowns, 1 interception. At one point in the game, I saw the graphic. He had 6 touchdowns and 6 incompletions. So he had the same number of touchdowns and incompletions, which is absolutely bonkers. And dude, honestly, when the defense stepped up in the second half, we started to see a little bit of a change, because what have we been talking about ever since we started the show? The line play hasn't been good on either sides of the ball. And finally, we saw some quarterback pressures. We saw them get into Caleb Williams' face. Now, it was few and far between, but that's kind of what you can expect from a guy like Caleb Williams. What I like seeing is that those guys are starting to play as a unit. They're starting to play together. They're getting momentum. They're getting pressure on the quarterback. And really, we're seeing a positive trend. Now, it's very slight, but we have seen like a modicum of improvement week to week.
Yeah, no, it's definitely been an uptick, I think, especially after the Rams game. The Rams game just stands out to me as, like, obviously the Ducks game was ugly too, but just that Rams team does not have the talent the Ducks offense has, and they just had no problem moving the ball up and down the field on this CU defense. And not only moving the ball up and down the field, but with like the same play over and over again. And it's just like, how can you not stop this? Doing that against USC is really promising. Now, the front, I want to wait and see that over a few weeks, just because the problem with every Lincoln Riley team is like, man, it's so good on the perimeter. The trenches are really weak. So is this just? But
they'll always have like one really good defensive lineman or edge that they throw in there, and then that's the guy that they game plan for, like typical USC Lincoln Riley style defense.
Yes, that on the defense, but then I think also on the offensive line. So although CU's trenches stepped up, I do need to see it. Like, not that Arizona State's trenches are great, but like if they do it against Arizona State and Stanford, because let's be real, we know this isn't going to be awesome. I don't know, offensive line, defensive line play. Yeah. From this Buffs team this season, those units are a work in progress. But if we see them hang with those two groups, I could buy into I don't know, them be at least being solid, not the laughing stock I think they've been at times this season. And sorry, just to go back to Omarion really quick, but can you honestly, it applies to the defensive backfield too. I'll start there on defense because we're talking about it. I think part of the reason this defense played so well is you had 2 cornerbacks playing at a really high level, and obviously you're going to be better with Travis Hunter out there, but I feel for when you had Travis Hunter out there, Omarion Cooper was very streaky, very hot and cold. And he was a little cold at the start of this game, but in that second half, when it was Cormani and him, they were playing lights out. And I think that was a big part of the reason the defense was able to get stuff going. Was USC had to rely on their trenches some. They couldn't just unload the ball quickly against a scattershot CU secondary. And the same thing's going to happen on offense now, where you get Omarion. If Cormani starts playing on defense, you'll get Omarion Miller to pair with Travis Hunter and Xavier Weaver on offense. And now you can't start shading all your coverages over to just Travis Hunter or Travis Hunter and Xavier Weaver. This offense keeps finding new ways to beat their opponents, which is, and the defense does too, which is very promising for the future of the Buffs going forward.
Absolutely. So it's interesting that you brought up Travis Hunter and like what the team could look like once he is back, obviously once Shiloh is back. So the question I pose to you, if the team plays with Travis Hunter and Shiloh Sanders this past Saturday, do we see a different result? Now, obviously, if Travis Hunter had played in Oregon, that result is the same. But you're talking about a 7-point game where if they are able to recover an onside kick, which I know nowadays is near impossible, but with the amount of momentum that they had going, like, maybe Travis Hunter gets him one more stop. Maybe he gets him one more first down. I don't think that's asking too much from him. Now, all of a sudden, we're talking about your two best defensive players, which we had mentioned last week. And it's like, if you had told me going into that game that would be a 7-point game, and that maybe the presence of Travis Hunter and Shiloh Sanders is the difference, of a win and a loss, I don't think I would have believed you. And CU played one hell of a game without their best player on the team and one of their best defensive players. So straight up and down, yes or no, do they beat USC with Travis Hunter and Shiloh Sanders?
Man, it's so tough. It's so tough for me to say, because I wonder if you get that insane, red hot performance from Omari Miller. It's hard not to say yes. I don't know. I'll
Zach, it's absolutely yes,
yes.
Beyond a shadow of a doubt.
I'll go with it. I do
USC
think
dodged a bullet.
I think you might be right. It's a toss-up game. I do think the ultimate. Yeah, maybe. Honestly, maybe, because you do have the blocked punt. That some of that stuff I feel like hasn't gotten talked about enough. You have the blocked punt. You have the miss kicked from Jace Feely, which is maybe not 10 points, because maybe they would have given up the touchdown anyways, because the defense wasn't stopping anyone at that point. But I don't know. It feels like that was 10 points given up on special teams. And then you have the clock management at the end of the game, which I can't believe it's taken us this far to get into it.
Which he took responsibility for and said he was checking into plays. But I guess, Zach, my question for you, I know you're more of an X's and O's guy. Why are you having some sort of look where you're optioning into a run play? Like, if you're not getting the look that you want, can we call an audible? Can we call a hot route? Can you go for some backyard, schoolyard bullshit? Would have been better than that. I mean, they wasted a lot of time with some arbitrary run plays on that last drive.
Yeah, I think what it might have been, and again, I'm throwing stuff at the wall here, but sometimes what we see with Dak Prescott, who I think is poor man's, and definitely a poor man's, like Peyton Manning or Tom Brady, but he's winning that same way. He's not winning with unbelievable athleticism. He's trying to beat you pre-snap from the neck up. That's the same way Shedeur is trying to beat you. Joe Burrow, CJ Stroud, Teddy Bridgewater, plenty of different quarterbacks are playing that way. But Shedeur's of that ilk. And I think sometimes you see those quarterbacks short circuit a little. Like Ed Reed would do this famously to Peyton Manning, where Peyton Manning would follow the rules of, okay, he's doing this, so I need to do this. And you can kind of counter off of that. In this case, I think Shedeur's looking at light boxes and going, oh, I know we need to audible into a run play. They're giving me 5-6 guys in the box. We've been running really effectively on our last few drives. I need to check into a run play here. Maybe he was jumping on a grenade for Sean Lewis, but if this is the case, I think that's what it's got to be. And he just was too zeroed in on the right answer, generally speaking, and wasn't taken into account.
Instead of playing in the moment.
Yes, that's what I mean. Just being a little robotic with it. Hey, I'm seeing the answer to the test when the defense is giving me 6 guys in the box is check into this easy run play, get a free 5 yards. And that just did not make sense in this circumstance. So that's all that makes sense to me. Just was not thinking of game script. And God, I hope he learned from this, because that's just, you can't do that. You can check into a different passing play, but it's got to be passing plays. It's got to be more tempo. I do think Shedeur, the part of it I did see on Shedeur was him taking that play clock down the whole time, trying to get it to the perfect play. That's something you can't do. You've got to have that tempo, because you just, man, with how the Buffs defense was playing, that's the thing that really kills me. I think they could have scored that touchdown with 3.5 minutes left. Been in a situation where they can kick it off and trust the defense, or try an onside kick and still be alive. But
yeah, if you don't get the onside kick, there's time to get the ball back.
And I trusted the defense with how they were playing down the stretch. Not to keep ranting, but that was killing me. I was like, what are you doing? Hackett level clock management, whoever was responsible. It was bad.
It's about as bad as it gets.
Honestly, how often have you seen a team driving down 2 touchdowns. The game is within reach for a comeback with like 4 minutes left, and they're running the ball up the middle. I've never seen that before. It's reminiscent of like the 64-yard field goal or 66, whatever that decision was.
Yeah, and what made it more frustrating is it ultimately worked. Like ultimately they put the ball in the end zone, which is of course what you're trying to do. And so I know it's like this catch-22 where it's like, well, you have to score, but you have to do it quick. But if you go too quick, then maybe you don't score. So it's like I get all of that, and it's just like a cruel irony thing, right? But I'm 100% with you. And again, like you're right. We don't know if Shedeur was falling on a grenade or, you know, who is to blame for the clock management. I mean, they did score, but you're absolutely right. Why? Like you cannot run the ball up the middle repeatedly. It's not like it was one run play. And it's like, all right, it's 3rd and 1. Let's get a first down and hurry up to the line. It's like, no, there were multiple run plays that really didn't factor in to the drive. So yeah, I'm 100% with you. Let's segue, of course, if you're new to the show, what Zach and I do every week is we give you our leader and our dog of the week. So we're going to start with the leader of the week. Last week, there were no leaders because it was a little brutal. But this week, I'm going outside the box a little bit, and I'm going to say my leader is Travis Hunter, despite the fact that he did not play. First and foremost, what he was able to do with the CSU safety with Blackburn, that's incredible. And honestly, like, hats off to Blackburn as well. I obviously did not like the kid after what had happened and what he did to Travis Hunter. I empathize with him after all the ridiculous threats, which Zach, you and I obviously discussed a couple shows ago. But for them, like, these are kids. This is what I want everybody to remember. Like, these are college students. Like, they're not professional players. They're not fully grown adults yet. Like, for them to have the wherewithal and like the amount of reality that they can decide to do this and set this kind of example, like standing O for them. But moreover on that, what you see with a guy like Travis Hunter, he knows that he is a special talent. When you have a player or an ex-player like Deion Sanders saying that he's a better athlete or like a better prospect than he ever was, it's easy to get egotistical. It's easy to get a big head. So for him to be so involved on the sideline, Zach, not being able to play, like a lot of kids would pout in that situation. A lot of star players, like, you know, they'd be there and they'd be cheering on their guys. Travis Hunter is on the sideline coaching up these kids. And the only reason that I want to single him out, I've been around the game a long time. I've known about the game of football on a very deep, intimate level my entire life. I have almost never seen that kind of behavior at any level, period. You take the fact that he is maybe the most famous college athlete in the country aside from Caleb Williams right now, and you put him in a situation where you know he wants to play. His coach was not allowing him to play. And honestly, if I saw him pout, I would say, oh, you know, I wish he was a little bit more involved, but I totally get it. Because you have to remember that these are kids. These are kids in college. That is a grown-ass man effort right there. So my leader of the week, for everything he did on and off the field, I continue to be enamored and obsessed with Travis Hunter, both what he can do on the field and what he does off the field. Leader of the week, easy.
It's really hard to imagine how he doesn't work out in the NFL. I really think it's only injury. I think that's the only thing that it's just, I mean, has all the talent in the world. It's obvious to anyone. You see how he moves. You see, again, just like his instincts in coverage. That TCU interception is nuts. That shows his film study, his ball skills, it just shows so he is out of this world talented. And then he's got all the off-field traits seemingly too. And Coach Prime's not going to just fluff up a big prospect he got so he can get the next big prospect. We heard what he said about Cormani McLean this past week. Like, had no problem throwing him under the bus and being like, oh, you want to know? Plenty of coaches would be like, oh, we're keeping that in house and, give some BS answer. He was like, here's what he needs. He needs to start studying. I can see that he's not studying. He needs to stop showing up to meetings late. Like, it was one of the more direct shots, if not the most direct shot I've ever seen a coach take at one of his players. And then every time he talks about Travis Hunter, he talks about how he's the epitome of a worker, how he's him, how he's just everything. And it's hard not to believe it that he's got all the time in the world. I think it's a great
good athlete. Yeah, exactly.
No, he checks every box from what I've seen. And the response to Blackburn, like the dapping him up, but even right after it happened, he got out of the hospital. He's in a giraffe onesie on his Twitch stream or whatever. And he's like, hey, it's football, bad things happen. That's incredibly mature. I cannot believe that.
And it's crazy because he's more mature than us, Zach, because that's exactly what the CSU coach, that's what Jay Norvell said. And you and I sat right here on the show. And we're like, bullshit. That doesn't happen in football. And again, like,
I don't think
I'm going to stand by that. And I'm sure that you are, because we know that doesn't happen in football. But again, the wherewithal of Travis Hunter to recognize that situation and diffuse it. I mean, damn well, man, that's not football. And honestly, like, if I'm a 20-year-old kid and I'm in college and that happens to me, I'm going off. I was a loose cannon.
See you next year. See you next year. Most kids would go, see you next year.
You think I'm wild now? Imagine me 12 years ago when I had most of my hair still and way more energy and was sleeping all the time. I had plenty of energy to get all up in your ass. Like, I would not have let that shit fly. So I'm glad that Travis Hunter is more mature than I am, even though it's a low bar.
And he could have ignited the whole rivalry with that. Like, he really easily could have. So I think it's a great pick.
But he realized, because of his maturity, that some things are more important than football, and this was one of those things.
Absolutely.
Who is your leader of the week?
I'm going to Marion. Or no. Oh, sorry. I got ahead of myself. It's my dog. Deion Sanders is my leader of the week. I'm going with him. We've gone with Shedeur a few times. So got to go out, break the mold a bit, though he would have also been a good pick. But Coach Prime
be every week.
Yes, Coach Prime deserves it. There's a reason why it's stitched on his jersey and not just part of the segment. Coach Prime deserves it here to me. This team was a little defeated and a little given up, and I think you heard it from the commentators, and I think it was just plain to everyone's eyes. The effort level changed at halftime, and I don't think it's coincidental. I don't think the players all just went into the locker room and were like, guys, we need to do better. I think Coach Prime whipped them into shape. You can see the YouTube video prove it as much. Like and I think he's just a great leader. I think we see it time in, time out. Like, going back to the Cormani McLean thing, getting on Cormani this past week, then giving him a chance to play. Probably, I'm assuming, because he did the tape study and everything. Prime's old school enough that I doubt he was like rewarding him for not changing his behavior at all. But okay, you see a little bit of changed behavior. You give him the, the stick. Yeah, exactly. You gave him the stick. Now you give him the carrot. He plays great. And then afterwards in the locker room, he's like, great game, Cormani. I'm still going to be on you, but this is what we need to see from you. This is what you can do. And again, that's just one player, but that's what he did to this whole team at halftime. The whole Buffs roster played differently between the first half of that one and the second half. And I think it's going to be, honestly, because of whatever Coach Prime and the rest of the coaching staff, frankly, did at halftime, I think it can be a jumping off point for the rest of the season. You look at that Oregon game, and that was a defeating effort. Like, you get your ass beat, and then you land, and you find out one of your team leaders is pissing blood. Like, that's tough.
Like injury to insult, insult to injury, all that.
Yeah. And then you go start this USC game out, and it's like USC touchdown. Shedeur throws a rare interception. USC touchdown. It's just like, oh my God, it's happening all over again. I think everyone in Buffs Nation had that feeling, and it flipped on a switch. And that's a credit to Deion Sanders. Lincoln Riley's no slouch of a coach on the other end. Alex Grinch might be, but Lincoln Riley's not. And
Lincoln Riley is incredibly good coach.
I'm a big fan of Coach Prime. It's just, I don't think he's just a recruiter. Like, he's going to be amazing at that. He's good at bringing some people into this program and marketing himself and all those things. I also think from what we've seen so far, he's just a really good football coach. I thought that was the case when he got hired, but I was like, I'm curious to see what it looks like. This dude's a damn good football coach.
Oh yeah, we couldn't even put it into words. Like, we were excited at the star power, and then you dig a little bit deeper into that and you realize, hold up, it's not all flash like some coaches might think. There's a lot of substance there, man. And you can only get so far on flash. Like, yeah, you might be able to recruit some prospects. Yeah, you're gonna have some people on the sidelines, some celebrities. There's gonna be cameras. It's gonna feel like Hollywood. But at the end of the day, you have to be a competitive football team. And so to think that this team is all flash and no substance, it's misguided and it's uneducated, and it proves that you're not actually paying attention to what Dion is doing in front of the cameras and behind the scenes. Because the way that team responded, you're absolutely right. The way they responded in the second half, admirable. And that 100% falls on the head coach. That is his job. When you are getting whooped going into halftime and that team comes out flat in the second half, it's on the coach. The same way if that team comes out and they make it a ball game, that is also on the coach. Now let's move over to our dog of the week. I know that you already kind of spoiled yours, so I'll let you take it first. Who is your dog of the week?
I mean, if there's one choice, there's one choice, and it's Amari Miller. Because and the great thing is, I knew I got it early. It was off. I don't think it was the first catch, but off his second catch, I got it.
Me like late in the third or early in the fourth, and you called it. And I was like, I had my phone, and I'm like, I think I need to call. And I got you on Michael Harrison a couple of weeks ago, so you got me on Amari Miller. So we're
that was exactly what I was thinking of. I was like,
as soon as I got the text from you, I knew. I'm like, damn it, Zach just called him. I know he did.
You had to. I mean, my God, and he is a dog. Like what that was an unreal performance. That was. I think it was more impressive than what Dylan Edwards did in the first game. I know Dylan Edwards had 4 touchdowns. Those are like really, or not all of them. He had plenty of impressive plays in that game, but a few of those touchdowns are just schemed up. Yeah. Just he's crazy fast. Run that guy to space, throw it to him before the defense can get there, and he's wide open, easy walk in. Omarion was making some unbelievably tough plays. Shedeur too, making those throws, but man, your first college football action.
Grown ass man plays. Yeah.
Going up against 4 stars and 5 stars. Like USC's defense isn't great. Every member of their defensive backfield, again, just knowing USC's recruiting ability, is a highly talented recruit.
Absolutely.
In their own rights. Omarion, like, he's a 4-star true freshman. And man, it's very clear he was rated too low. That guy is, I mean, I don't know. I think he might be the best wide receiver on this, best true pure wide receiver on this team.
Yeah,
because I
like
think
a guy that can absolutely do everything. Yeah,
he will be. I wouldn't be. Yeah, of guys currently on this roster right now, he might be highest drafted as a wide receiver. I think Travis Hunter will be drafted as a cornerback, all said and done. But in terms of pure talent at the wide receiver position, this is crazy, and he might have that as a true freshman in his first action. Small sample size, so maybe it's nothing, but. Okay, like you talked about, what if they have Travis Hunter, Shiloh Sanders? What if they have Omari and Miller playing the whole game? What if he put all that up?
Yeah, exactly. Maybe they score on every drive.
He put up 186, 190 or whatever it was.
196, I think. Yeah.
196 in what a third of the game? It was a quarter and a half just about. It was, I mean, much. I can't believe it. This guy, I'm so excited to see what this offense looks like when you get him, you get Travis Hunter, and you get Xavier Weaver out there. Or let Travis, this is a great way to save Travis Hunter's snaps. Play him a lot on defense, get Xavier Weaver, get Omari and Miller, get Jimmy Horn out there. Damn, that's a nasty receiver room. Yeah, I've seen enough of Javon Antonio. These are the 3, these are the 4 you need in the receiver room.
Yeah, this is the core. This is exactly who you need. Yeah, I agree 100%. Obviously, my dog is not quite as flashy as Amari and Miller. Didn't quite have the game, but I thought quietly had a really nice game. Anthony Hankerson, 16 carries, 74 yards, big time touchdown. He's kind of the thunder to Dylan Edwards' lightning. He's a really nice different back from Dylan Edwards. He runs hard. He'll run you over, and he kept CU in the game with some really hard-nosed runs. And it was something that we wanted to see, Zach, that we've wanted to see since week one, is that the CU commits to the run and they actually get into a groove with the running game. And I think Hankerson was a big reason they were able to do that this week. Obviously, Dylan Edwards is faster. He's more dynamic. He's more explosive, more of a playmaker. But Hankerson gets those tough yards. Like, he can put his foot down. He can put his foot in the ground. He can get you 3 to 4 yards to carry every single time. And I think that's the kind of punishing back that needed. Like, that's there needs to be their attitude. Everybody in the entire country knows that they can throw the ball. That is never going to be in question. That is never going to be an issue. But you as an offense, if you want to be in a bowl game, if you want to compete, if you want to take that next level and be able to compete with the big boys, not only do they have to be better on the lines, which we've talked about, you have to establish a run game, and you need a bully at running back, and that is Hankerson, and hopefully he's able to build on what he was able to do.
Yeah, I love that. I think Hankerson, they need to find another option in the backfield. Dylan Edwards is great for what he is. He is so amazing. He is elite, I think, frankly, at what he is good at. But like you saw with the Broncos and Jaleel McLaughlin, like Jaleel McLaughlin should maybe not be like your all-purpose back.
He's not the bell cow. Right.
No, yeah, bell cow. He's you're not going to want him in pass pro situations. You don't want him running between the tackles. And I think it's part of the reason the Buffs run game has been ineffective, because let's be real, this line isn't going to be perfect. There might be a little bit of mess in there, and Dylan Edwards is not going to shake off any tackles. It coming from Anthony Hankerson is huge, and they need it. I'm still holding out hope for Alton McCaskill. I'm disappointed it hasn't been there yet. He's barely.
I think you just need to be patient with McCaskill. I think he's still working back. Maybe has to knock the rust off a little bit.
That's what I'm thinking.
Just gotta give it some time, I think, on that one.
I'm hoping, yeah, to your point, I'm hoping it's injuries and not that the coaching staff just doesn't trust him or anything. I hope it's, they're working him into things. Because, man, if you want a little bit of fun as a Buffs fan, look up Alton McCaskill freshman highlight reel, because he's a good running back. He had 22 touchdowns the last time he was on a college football field.
He's a fun player.
In a single season as a true freshman. Like, add that guy to the mix, and this offense can really get rolling. It keeps getting better as the season goes on. I know I mentioned it before, but they unearthed Michael Harrison a couple weeks ago, and he hasn't been like the every week superstar he was in that Rams game, but he's been another option for Shedeur. Shedeur wasn't using him those first two games. Now Shedeur comfortable going there. Now you throw Marion Miller into the mix. Now you throw Hankerson into the mix, build a little more of that run game. If you keep just adding pieces onto this offense, man, it's going to get even tougher and tougher to stop them, because they've been nasty when they can only beat you like one way. Once you start being able to beat a team 2-3 ways, Shedeur's deadly. I'm excited to see what happens.
Zach, it's a real shame that they had to play Oregon and USC this early in the season, and obviously in a situation without Travis Hunter and then Shiloh Sanders against USC. I almost get the sense that if they had played later in the season, and maybe this is the black and gold Kool-Aid talking and the black and gold colored shades, but it seems like week to week, they're slowly starting to figure out different things. And I think like this is by and large a young team, and it's also a team that has never played together before. This is why we didn't know what to expect, because all of this was so brand new. There were so many young kids. There was a lot of different talent from a lot of different places. But it was a lot of new stuff, and they didn't retain a lot of the previous regime, so we didn't know what to think. So it's like week to week, they're learning on the go. And I firmly believe that if they had played at Oregon, like they might never win at Oregon in this season, right? But I firmly believe if it was later in the season, when they're starting to fire on more cylinders and they're starting to put things together as a team, that it's a much better game. I firmly believe that if they played USC later in the season and they're at full strength and they have more things figured out, I think that's a win for CU. And so as CU fans and as two people that cover the team and bring you this show, like as a Buff fan, we want to tell you, you have so much to be excited about. You have so much to hang your hat on, because even though they're not there yet, in terms of being like a legit national competitor from last year to this year is, I can't even put into words, substantially better. And we are seeing growth week to week. I know it didn't feel like that in the Oregon game, but sometimes you lose a lot from getting your ass kicked. And it's clear that they did. So as a fan, pay attention to these little things that they start to put together every week, because as they learn to play football together with one another, this is going to turn into a really, really good football team. And if nothing else, an incredibly fun football team to watch. But what I will say, Zach, maybe one of the biggest things I'm concerned about, maybe the biggest aspect that I feel like is not trending in the right direction. What do we do about Jace Feely? I know that his dad is a well-recognized kicker. Everybody knows who Jay Feely is. Jace, I think, came from Arizona State, if I'm not mistaken, didn't really get much of an opportunity to kick, but he's famous because of who his dad is. But now this is the second game that we have seen them bring Alejandro Mata in to make kicks because of a kick that Feely missed. So Jace, as it stands right now, man, 4 for 7. He's only 1 for 3 in kicks between 40 and 49 yards. And I think the only problem with Mata, last season at Jackson State, his longest field goal was 38 yards.
No leg.
He's hit a 41-yarder this year, but it looked labored. And so now, you know, they bring him in for extra points, but then Jace Feely is the kickoff specialist. Is this a big conundrum, or do we trust Jace Feely to figure this stuff out? Because it's a little disconcerting, man. I'm a little bit concerned to have a kicker that's 4 of 7.
Yeah, I think it's a real problem at this point. And the Buffs have a lot of kickers. I think they had 4 in spring training. They at least had 3, because there's also Palazzolo, who we haven't seen anything of, and then I think there might be a 4th. You know what this reminds me of, Mario? Connor Barth and Brandon McManus. That's what this is. The first year when McManus didn't have it figured out yet.
Good.
He was
so
super
good.
scattershot, but he had a strong leg. And then you had Connor Barth, who had no leg at all, but was money. And so
but up to 40, like 20 to 39, he's dialed in. If he's got to step into one, you don't know what's going to happen. That's a very good comparison. So what do you do going forward, man? Do you
what they did?
How far of a range do you give Mata right now? Like what is the cutoff? 42? 43?
Just about. I'm watching it in practice, which I know isn't part of your question, but like, can he get to 45? Because I think, you know, you'd like a nice round number. If it's 45, okay, 45 and ends Mata zone. If you don't feel confident about that, you're keeping it at 41 or whatever, and then anything beyond that is Jace Feely, or you're going for it. Frankly, at this point, I'd probably go for it on 4th more often than I'm trusting Jace Feely's leg.
100%. If it's more than short, man, it's like you might as well just go for it.
And Shedeur makes the play right. Honestly, even if it's like in a gotta have it situation, I'm taking probably a 4th and 7 with Shedeur, like drop back passing game, and these weapons, especially now that you
over like a 45 to 47 plus yard field goal.
Yeah, I think you're only doing that if it's like 4th and 13, 4th and 14. And then, bring out Jace Feely there. Doesn't make sense to punt. And tell him, like, this is how you earn the whole job back. If you want to start taking short kicks, if you want to start taking extra points and all that shit, prove your worth on some of these long bombs. And you can get that job back. But you cannot keep this CU Buffs team's improved a lot under Coach Prime, but this was still a 1-11 roster last year that has some serious limitations with it still. Again,
which
upgraded a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Serious limitations. They're walking a tightrope all season long. Like ASU and Stanford are their 2 easiest games remaining, and they absolutely should win those games. But much like we saw against CSU, if CU shows up and kind of sleepwalks their way through the first half, they could find themselves in a lot of trouble in those games. You cannot be just walking away from points at a regular basis You need Mata to convert those easy 3 points because he's pretty guaranteed. He's been money at Jackson State. He's been money at CU. All throughout spring practice, he was very consistent, very accurate. The book is out on Mata. He is very, what do they say? Mata doesn't miss, which is true, unless you ask him to kick anything beyond 45 yards because he cannot physically kick that. Get him to do something.
Technically, he doesn't miss. It's just short.
Fair. He needs to get him on the leg curl machine, get him doing something. Have the strength staff purely focus on Mata this week. Get up to 45. That'd be nice.
Speaking of performance issues, man, I don't know if you saw this, but apparently Ralphie is having a little bit of a hard time, and this is hard for me to see, man. Like as someone that grew up going to CU games with my dad. And, you know, my sister was there in 1990 when they won the national championship. This is the greatest tradition in all of college sports, in my opinion. Obviously, I'm biased, but it's a staple of college football. It's like that, like Ralphie running is synonymous. It's almost like one of those things like you can't tell the story of college football without Ralphie running. And I mean, she's barely making it to the 30-yard line. She seems disinterested. And I think it's funny that I'm talking about her as if she's one of these players, and she's like she's not putting in the effort. Like, oh yeah, this Buffalo was like a 4.5-star recruit coming out of Idaho, and she just doesn't want to perform. What's going on, man? Like, am I crazy here?
No, you're right. It caught my eye, the Nebraska game, right? I was at that game, and I was like, that's weird. I feel like Ralphie normally runs further. Like, I don't know. That was just a little odd, but I'm like, okay, first game of the season.
Goes pillar to post. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, that looked odd, but I'm like, okay, I don't know. Whatever. It's been a while since I was at a CU game. You know, they've been bad for a good while. Maybe I'm misremembering. But then seeing it, the CSU game and again the USC game, it's a bummer. I don't know. Like you said, it's one of the greatest traditions out there, and it's not working out. And I'm not going to blame the animal. It's an animal. Like, it doesn't know any better.
That animal needs to know better, Zach. We're talking about a CU team led by the Deion Sanders. Okay, nothing less than the best is that. Of course, I'm joking. No, you can't blame the animal.
But Folsom's been this loud before. Like, it's crazy loud now, totally. But in the 90s and it was bumping when this team was really good. So I don't think it's just a noise thing. I think, like, for whatever reason, it might not be this Buffalo's forte, and that's fine. That Buffalo, I hope it lives a lovely life. But maybe we usher in Ralphie 7 a little earlier. Like, it's not the Ralphie 6 is not a Supreme Court justice. We don't have to wait for it to die. Like, I do think, like, let it live a good, happy little life, and maybe bring one that's like more up to the task.
Listen, but maybe you just have to treat it like Cormami McLean. You know, maybe you have to call Ralphie out and to say, Ralphie, you are not putting forth the effort you need to in order to participate at the University of Colorado. It's like you're part of the greatest tradition in all of college sports. We just feel like you're not taking it seriously. Like, let's get her out into a stable, run her around, practice it. I mean, shoot, have her run on the field a couple reps during practice, you know, or like before the game, before the fans come out into the stands. They just got to get those reps in. It's just like Cormami, man. It's like he is going to be such a good corner someday. You just need reps. You just got to touch the ball. That's all Ralphie needs. Just a few more reps. And it's just a little pep talk. Can we get Deion to pep talk, Ralphie? If Deion Sanders can pep talk a freaking Buffalo, and we see that thing by week 11 running pillar to post like goal line to goal line, then you might as well just rename CU like Primetime University, because that is the only way that Deion can like make himself better than what he is now.
And the college is refusing to comment, which is the other thing. That's the part that really makes it. If they were just like, hey, you know, she's young, we're having a hard time training her, like that would be okay. The fact they're refusing to comment, I do wonder if it's something with like maybe all the celebrities, all the people on the sideline, they can't have it run all that distance, and they don't want people pointing the finger at Deion. I have no idea why they're being so mysterious about it, but it only adds to the intrigue. And I don't know, it makes it more of a thing to me. I'm weirded out by the situation.
Am I the only one that kind of wants to see like to let Lil Wayne run with Ralphie?
It'd be great.
I mean, the dude wears his pants
Let
like
him ride
halfway
him.
down his thighs. I think that would be absolutely hilarious. It's always funny to me when you see rappers try to be athletes, because every rapper wants to be an athlete, right? And then every athlete wants to be a rapper. But it's like, if you're an athlete, you're probably not a rapper. Sorry. And if you're a rapper, you almost definitely are not an athlete. And it kind of almost humanizes these rappers, right? When you see it's like, oh, they talk real tough and you think that they're so smooth and you just assume that they're good athletes. But I guarantee you, if Lil Wayne's out there running with his pants way below his ass with Ralphie, he's going to the hospital.
Probably. It'd be a spectacle, though. I'm all for the spectacle this season. You had the baby running out with them this week. I mean, it's fun. It's great.
All right, let's move on to our previews and predictions against Arizona State. I mean, what can you say, Zach? Like, this is not a good football team. They're only averaging 17.6 points per game, which is a far cry from the last two teams they played. That's good for 238th in the NCAA. Their only win came week 1 against Southern Utah, where they barely got by them 24-21. They've also been bitten by the injury bug hard. Their starting quarterback coming into the season, Jaden Rashada, who was, I believe, a true freshman, pretty highly touted recruit, very athletic individual, got hurt a couple weeks ago, said he was slated to miss about a month and a half worth of time. He will not go. And they've actually, they've been bit so hard by the injury bug at this quarterback position, Zach. They have cycled through 4 quarterbacks. So I'm going to be honest with you. I tried to do a little bit of research. I couldn't find too much. I have no idea who Arizona State is going to put out there at quarterback. Maybe you do. And honestly, if they continue this trend, it's going to be more of the same. It might not matter. This might be one of those get right games for the defense, right? It's like, all right, you gave up way too much to CSU. You got embarrassed by Oregon on the defensive side of the ball. You got cooked by the best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck and since John Elway. So you take your lumps, but you also created a little bit of momentum towards the end of that game. The defense looked like it was finally starting to figure things out. Now you're going up against an offense that doesn't really do anything well. Like, they don't run the ball well. They kind of throw the ball well, but not great. Like, certainly nowhere near the level that we've seen, honestly, all season, aside from maybe the Nebraska game. Every team that the Buffs have faced, they all throw the ball really well. Arizona State is they're just a very mid to below average team. Like, this should not be a contest. And I know we said that against Colorado State, and maybe that's different because it's a rivalry, and it turned out they had a few players that we were unaware of. But if you look at the numbers and you look at how the Arizona State Sun Devils play, this needs to be a get-right game, right? Like, this needs to be the game where your defensive line starts pressuring. Your linebackers are filling the gaps and making tackles. Your safeties and corners are making PBUs. You're making advantageous plays, a couple of turnovers. Oh, and speaking of turnovers, Zach, the Arizona State defense has 1 turnover all season. They have turned the ball over 13 times. That means they are minus 11. I'm sorry. That's bad math. They're minus 12 in the turnover rate. My brain got ahead of myself and started to think of other things. It's no excuse. And I'm old, as you always tend to, to point out. And I had dinner like 6 hours ago. Anyway, yeah, minus 12. That is 3rd worst in the entire NCAA. So there's not a lot to know about this Arizona State team. There's nothing fascinating about them. There's nothing groundbreaking about them. This is a down year for a team that's usually pretty solid, like usually pretty competitive. But this needs to be a game that they win. If CU is going to get to a bowl game, which you and I discuss is like, that's the goal for this year, right? They're not going to win the Pac-12. They're not going to go to the Pac-12 tournament. But if you can win 6 games, if you can get invited to a bowl game, I think that's ideal. I think at this point, it's best case scenario. And if you want to, you start with a really good baseline and then year to year continue to improve. These are the kind of games that you just have to win. These are the kind of games that you need to be putting them away by the third quarter.
Yeah, I fully agree. And the Buffs messed up their last opportunity at one of these.
Exactly.
Vegas is kind of fading the Buffs right now.
Little bit.
They've got CU favored, but only as 4-point favorites. I think I'm going to lay a little on that. I think this is way more they're way better than 4 points better than Arizona State. Way more than 4 points better than Arizona State. I mean, like you said, Arizona State down quarterbacks like crazy. They had Jaden Rashada, the true freshman, who was really highly touted. He's down. Notre Dame transfer, another fairly highly touted guy. He's down. They are down to Trenton Bourguet, who got a start last year, actually diced up CU. Again, very different CU team.
Who did it, though?
Yes, exactly.
Zach, I could have gone out there and diced up CU last year. Let's be perfectly honest.
You probably could have.
Probably could have started at quarterback for him last year, too.
Probably. But yeah, absolute nightmare situation for Arizona State at quarterback. They're leaning heavily on running back Cam Skatebo. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. Skatebo.
He's a fun little player too, man. He catches the ball a little bit.
He's all they got.
Yep, he's a high energy guy. Runs incredibly hard. You know, real workhorse type. And yeah, I think that's. I mean, if you slow him down, man, they're not a dynamic offense.
They
just picked him up from, I think it was like Sacramento State last year, where he was a standout. Like, he's a good little football player, but he's one of these guys that's like, he's going to be a very good college football player. And that's pretty much
or
it.
maybe a Jaleel McLaughlin, Philip Lindsay story, but again, he's
that is like on the top end of potential.
If things go really right, he's an undrafted free agent that gets some shine at the NFL level. Right. Yeah, they don't have much. I do think one thing they do have, CU's probably best player a season ago was Jordan Tyson, the freshman. He decided he didn't want to try and battle with that Louis luggage and decided to leave CU.
Probably because he knew about Amorion Miller before we did.
But he went to Arizona State and has not got on the field yet for Arizona State. He's coming back from injury. Could maybe, return this week. I think probably more likely than not, he's still on the bench, but something for Buffs fans to monitor. Yeah, Arizona State has been middling to below average defense. They will make you earn it, though. Like, look at USC. USC had to fight for it. That said, Fresno State beat them out. But if CU overlooks this opponent, they could easily get trapped. Beyond a CSU situation where they're just like ill-prepared and a little lackadaisical, I don't see how this game's close. You're getting Travis Hunter back. Arizona State's not able to hang with that quartet of receivers with Travis Hunter and Jimmy Horn and Xavier Weaver and Omarion Miller. Like, it's not happening. And defensively, you're getting Travis Hunter back too, which is going to make life that much more difficult for this quarterback. You highlighted, back to Arizona State's defense, you highlighted the takeaway stat, and that's embarrassing. It also speaks to how loose their coverage has been all year. They have that one takeaway. Exactly. It was a fumble recovery. They don't have a single interception all year. And again, they played Southern Utah, I think was their first game. It's some directional
Southern Utah. They got blown out and shut out by Fresno State. I mean, they lost to Cal. Obviously, they lost to USC. I mean, they're just not a good football team.
Exactly. They're playing quarterbacks that could make mistakes, and they're not forcing them. Yeah, CU should roll in this one. They should roll against Stanford next week. I really think, not only because these are bad opponents, but carry that momentum from the USC game. Really, lay a licking on Arizona State and show people like this is who CU is from this point on. You got your two, maybe we shouldn't say unwinnable, but what looked like unwinnable. The two top 10 teams back to back. I think everyone in their right mind were like, loss, when they were looking at the schedule preseason.
Yeah.
No one thought they were
man, a lot of people had them at 2-3. They're 3-2, so they're already exceeding expectations.
Most people had them at 1-4, with only beating Colorado State. So I don't know. But still, rest of the season, this team could go 10-2. I don't think they will, but they could. The Pac-12 is very even right now. I think you've got 2, maybe 3 great teams, and but it's all a mess. The Pac-12 always cannibalizes itself.
Every year.
This Buffs team could get hot, go if not 10-2, 9-3, 8-4. I don't think they will, but it's totally achievable. If they're going to launch into that type of team, it starts this week.
Yeah, 100%. It's like we said, this needs to be a get-right game. This needs to be a catapult game where you use this as a jumping off point. It's like you show up, you take care of business, you beat the crap out of a team that's not very good right now. You take care of business and you carry that momentum with you through the rest of the season. And that's what we need to see. And so we'll circle back to this obviously next week. But Zach, if this isn't a blowout win, like if they don't win by at least 2 possessions, I think I'm going to have a little bit of a problem with it. And I know I say that now, and I know a win is a win, but it's just like you just went toe-to-toe with USC, and maybe if you have a little bit more time, you're able to beat that because things click just a little bit too late. This Arizona State team is not in their stratosphere currently. And so it has to be a game that they win. If we want to start taking them seriously and hope that they not only get to a bowl game, but maybe go to a good bowl game. I mean, shoot, man, they finished 10-2 or 9-3. We're probably getting a decent bowl game. They're not going to the hair care and tire center bowl. They're going to, maybe sometime closer to New Year's Eve. They absolutely need to beat this team. So let's do our score predictions. And then, maybe we can run down real quick the remainder of the season, Zach. I'm going to take the Buffs 38-24. I think that their offense can score more points, but they've been getting off to sluggish starts. Like we saw it against CSU. Obviously, it happened against Oregon. It happened again against USC. And USC doesn't have a great defense. Like we talked about that. That was the worst possible game for you to come out flat against because that was a defense that can be exposed. If this comes out flat again, someone's going to have to answer for it because there is absolutely no excuse to have a quarterback that is the caliber of Shedeur Sanders and you are not at least moving the ball early in the game and putting points on the board early.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. It's got to take a step up. It's good how they're closing these games in the second half, but they've been way, way, way too much of a second half team. Like every single week, it's like TCU game.
Put a whole game together like you did against TCU, yeah.
But even TCU, they were struggling relatively throughout the first half on offense. I don't know. You need to see that consistency step up. I'm going 41-20 here, Buffs. I do feel like something happened at halftime in that USC game. I think the discovery of Omari and Miller is huge just because it makes the math that much harder. Like these in the past defenses were kind of like, okay, Xavier Weaver, I think he's very good, but he's not going to destroy you. He's more in the very good tier. And then Jimmy Horn doesn't have consistent hands. Now you're throwing Omari and Miller in there. You're bringing Travis Hunter back. And I just think picking the poison got so much harder. I don't know. I think they're going to start causing real problems for teams. I think Shedeur keeps getting better. I didn't mention it during our USC preview. I saw a huge leap from him in terms of knowing when to give up on a play or get rid of a ball. And it's not perfect, but seeing that growth through 4 weeks, I think he's adjusting to the FBS speed and is like, okay, maybe I can't cash all of these checks. Maybe I do just have to give myself some 2nd and 10s instead of 2nd and 17s. And that can help evade the sluggish starts. This team I think is about to get more dangerous on offense. That's why I'm going with a bit of a blowout.
Yeah, 100%. So let me just run down the remainder of the season. We're coming up on the midway point. Obviously, at Arizona, the following week, they've got a Friday night game against Stanford at home. Then they've got their bye week. And I think that's going to be a really good time for the bye week to come. Later on in the season, guys are going to be banged up, a little bit bruised. I always like when the bye week is later on. And then they're at UCLA, a game that they should win. But UCLA is always interesting. They always have talent. And it seems like year after year, they tend to underperform, but it is 100% a game that they can win. I don't know if they should win it. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it, but that's a winnable game. The following week, you've got Oregon State at home. Oregon State looks like one of the best teams in the Pac-12. I don't think they're winning that game. The following week against Arizona, that absolutely needs to be a win. And then they finish their season at Washington State and then at Utah. Absolutely
Two toughest places.
Brutal way to end your season. And like as it stands now, with as explosive as that Washington State offense is, like not quite on the level of Caleb Williams and USC, but pretty damn close, honestly. And Utah is Utah, right? It's like they're a hard-nosed, gritty football team that'll punch you in the mouth and wear you down. It's like they're not flashy. They're not going to put on a show. They will just bully you. And it's like, that's another hard game, Zach. Like, unless what I'm predicting, like, continues to come to fruition and they continue to improve every single game, like maybe when they get to that point, we're going to see something different. But as it stands right now, I don't think that either of those two games are wins. So if we're assuming just based off of that they lose to Oregon State, Washington State, and Utah, and they win all of their other games, then that puts them at 6 wins.
Yeah,
which I'm good with.
I think, I feel good about Arizona State. I feel good about Stanford. I feel good about Arizona. That'll get them to 6.
I'm sorry, Miss County. Yeah, so it would be 7. Depending on UCLA.
UCLA is the toss-up.
6 or 7 wins, right?
I do think
then maybe like if you could sneak out a win against one of those other ranked teams and maybe pull an upset that you probably shouldn't. Then you start talking about 8 wins. Now we're cooking a little bit.
And Utah hasn't been themselves. Maybe that changes once Cam Rising gets back from injury. If he gets back from injury, that whole situation's weird. Also, once he does get back, we don't know what version of Cam Rising you're going to be getting. Like that whole situation is weird, but Utah has not been themselves so far this season. They played UCLA at home, who we just talked about. And I think UCLA is right on the same tier as Colorado. And that's why that's kind of a coin flip game. But UCLA just went into Utah and lost the game, I'm pretty sure 14-7. Maybe it wound up 21-7, but it was 14-7 for most of the game. And UCLA threw a pick 6 on their first play. And they had a backup quarterback.
Seems to have games like that, man. It's like they'll have a handful of games where they play so far below their talent level and their means. And it's like, as a CU fan, you kind of have to hope that that's the team you run into at the end of the season.
And that's the thing. I think that one's winnable. Washington State and Oregon State, I think, are probably the two that scare me the most down the stretch. Yeah. But the Pac-12 always cannibalizes itself. It always finds a way to do it.
Watch, dude. Like there'll be a team that beats Oregon that has no business doing it. There'll be a team that beats USC who has no business doing it. Like USC and Oregon will cannibalize themselves. Oregon State looks like a really good team. They might sneak out a win against one of those teams. And I think it's going to be another year that. And I think in the last year of the Pac-12, Zach, I don't think that we are going to see a Pac-12 team in the college football playoff. It's exactly for the reason that you said. The division is stacked right now, and it, like you said, it cannibalizes itself, and it doesn't have the rapport and the repartee of the SEC. So you can't be a 2-loss team in the college football playoff unless you're in the SEC. So I don't think that we're going to see it.
No, it's probably not going to. I mean, USC and Oregon could, but just the pattern of this conference tells me they won't. I would say, we just went over that CU remaining schedule. I bet they get snake bit by a team we're not expecting, and they snake bite a team that we're not expecting. That's, again, just kind of the way of the Pac-12.
Interesting. All right. Any closing thoughts before we get out of here, Mr. Seegers?
Keep feeding Omari and Miller. Keep giving Cormani chances. As long as they're doing their work off the field and you're not disrupting culture, feed the young guys.
Absolutely. And as always, if you have joined us, thank you so much. We cannot tell you how much we appreciate your support. We hope that you all have as much fun listening to us as we do recording all of these. And remember, if people seem like they are trying to force a Buffs podcast down your throat, that seems like it's kind of based off of what Zach and I are doing. That's absolutely what they're trying to do, but they are nowhere near our stratosphere, and they simply can't do what we do and give you the coverage that we give you. Nobody is like me and Zach. They're going to try really hard, and they're going to push their narrative, and they're going to feel really bad that they didn't get Zach Seegers, but I got Zach Seegers, so you're not on my level. if you are interested in any Let's Talk Buffs gear, I think we will have a link in the description, right, Zach? We'll have
Yes,
that for
we
the
will.
people, those gorgeous, very soft, I don't even know what material
High
it is. I think
quality.
it's a tri-blend, but they fit well. Like, this is such a beautiful shirt. It makes Zach look like he has muscles. Okay.
It does.
You can't put a price on something that fashionable and that comfortable. And so there's a couple different colors to choose from. We got black, charcoal, I think gray. I think we might have a white one in there. Yeah, I mean, we don't really get paid for it. We just kind of we sell them so you could support us. And that would be awesome. And if you do have a Let's Talk Buff shirt, we would love it if you posted it. Continue to show your support. Make sure you follow Zach on Twitter at Zach_Seegers. Follow me at Vitanzi Therapy. If you ever have any questions or queries or anything Buffs related, please feel free and do not hesitate to reach out to either one of us. But do not slide into our DMs. They are not open, and we are not doing any of that weird shit. Okay. And I'm talking to very certain people, and you know who you are. Please leave me alone. Thank you very much. This has been Let's Talk Buffs. Mario Vitanzi, Zach Seegers. We love you all, and Sco Buffs.
Sco.